This is on combining functions. I don't care if you start a new one or if you add it to the bottom, it doesn't matter. And composition of functions. You've actually done, really you've done both of these. Okay, let's look at the combining first. Okay, if you're given f of x equals the square root of x and g of x, usually they give you two functions, and g of x equals the square root of 1 minus x. So f of x is the square root of x, and g of x is square root of 1 minus x. And they will just ask you to combine them. It will say find the sum, the difference, the product, and the quotient. Okay, so in y sub 1, put in the square root of x, and it's going to have parentheses there. In y sub 2, we're going to put in our original square root of 1 minus x. Okay, take a minute and do that. So y sub 1, we're going to put in the square root. You have to do second function square root. It's right above the x squared there. And then x and close the parentheses. And people, for this one, I'm going to give you a window. You have to play with the windows, but some of these I'm going to give you a window. When I give you the window for the x, my x min is -1, my x max is 2, and my scale is 1. For the y, the window, I'm going to go -3 to 3 and scale 1. So set your window first. I'm going -1 for the x min. I'm going 2 for the x max, scale 1. Y min -3 to 3, scale 1. Okay, and let's just graph that first one. Okay, so y sub 1, and it's a good idea in here if you have different colored pens or pencils, okay, for these graphs, you could color code these too. This is my y sub 1. Okay. Okay, now remember you can turn a graph off. If you put your cursor on the equal sign and press enter, that turns that off. Go down to y sub 2 and let's put in the square root of 1 minus x. Okay, and let's graph that one. Okay, and it is coming over something like that. And if I did second function calculate value at x equals 1, yes, there is an ordered pair here at, that is a solid point. Okay, so that's my y sub 2. So I know what it looks like. Okay, now, the author's just asking you to add them, subtract them, multiply them, divide them. The easiest way to do that is in y sub 3, you're going to turn these first two off, you're going to turn this one off, and you're going to add what's in y sub 1 plus what's in y sub 2. Okay, so turn this graph off, go down to y sub 3, and remember we use the bars key, V-A-R-S, it's right here. Use the bars key. Right arrow over to y variable and function y sub 1. Okay, that pastes that in. Plus, and then use the bars key, right arrow over to y variables function, and go down and pick up y sub 2. Okay, now, if this is the only one on, that's going to be our combined function. So graph it. Okay, and that's what our graph looks like. So for your addition, okay, for my y sub 1 plus y sub 3, or y sub 2, sorry, if I add those together, and then just do a little sketch of what that looks like. It looks like this. Okay, and then I would do a second function calculate value at x equals 0. Yes, there is a solid point there. And I do second function calculate value at x equals 1. And yes, there is a solid point at 1, 1. Okay? Now it's real easy to do the add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Go back to your, and change this to a minus sign. Change your, so now do y sub 1. All you're going to do is you're going to go back in and change this to a minus sign and graph it. Okay? And on the y sub 1 minus y sub 2, okay, you're going to get something that looks like that. And again, I would do second function calculate value at x equals 0. There is a point down here at negative 1, 0. And then I do second function calculate value at x equals 1. And yes, there is an ordered pair up here at 1, 1. Okay? And then it's real easy to go back and do the times. Change that to a time sign. Get the idea? Okay, so that's basically, what did we use to get this? The vars key. And then we did a right arrow over to y variables. And then we did function. And that's a real, and then you just go in and you just keep changing this sign. So combining is not bad at all. And just draw a little sketch of it, and you may have to investigate the endpoints to know if they're open circles. Okay? Any questions on that before I go on? Don't make that hard. Okay, then we did composition of functions. Okay? You did this in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, last year. Should have done it a little bit. Composition of functions. Let me go through an example. If I say you're given, they're going to give you at least two functions. F of x equals x minus 7. And let's say I give you another function, g of x is x squared. Okay? Some authors write it like this. If I wanted to figure f of g of x. Okay? And let's say I wanted to figure f of g of, let's go g of 2. This says you do the innermost group first. So you would find what's g of 2. So you'd go in here and you'd say g of 2 is 4. So then you'd substitute in, for the g of 2 it's 4. Then you'd find f of 4. Okay? So f of 4 would be negative 3. So that's a composition of function. Okay? Give you another example. What if I did g of f of 5? You do the innermost group first. What's f of 5? Can you do it by sight? What's f of 5? Negative 2, right? If you put it in up here and put it in here, you get negative 2. Okay, so g of negative 2. So now take the g function and substitute in negative 2. Negative 2 squared would be 4. Okay? Do you remember doing that? Some of the algebra books do it like this: f of g of x, or g of f of x. They use that little symbol. Somebody came back one time and said, "Miss Elliott, we're studying fog and golf." I said, "You're what?" "Fog and golf." I said, "No, you're studying composition of functions, not fog and golf." Okay? Okay. Basically, that's the idea on those. Do you need another example? Okay. I want to go through one more example of a piecewise graph. Draw a little separator there. This is in your book on page 37, number 10. And they will just say to graph this. F of x and there's three parts to it. F of x, remember, the same thing as y, so it's like y equals negative x, and x is less than 0. Y equals x squared, and x is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 1. And y equals 1 for x greater than 1. Okay? Now, take a couple minutes. I want you to draw that by hand first, and then check it on your graphing calculator. While you're doing that, I'm going to put the answer up here so you can look up. Okay? But I want you to try one on your own without me. Okay? And I'll go through questions if you have questions on it. After you get it by hand, do it on the calculator. And remember to go dot mode on the calculator.